Welcome to A.U.M, Ask Us Marketing. I'm your host, Kalli Fedusenko of Kalli Collective, a digital marketing agency focused on building relationships between financial advisors and their target audience using data to create websites, online content, and ads. We build relationships first and grow numbers second. If that's an approach that resonates with you, then sign up for our emails or learn more about us at the QR code below. Our episode today is brought to you by the Financial Planning Association, otherwise known as the FPA. FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for financial advisors like you. So, webinars aren't just for teaching, they're for attracting the right clients. Elizabeth Reider from Indigo Marketing Agency is pulling back the curtain on how financial advisors can use webinars to build authority, connect with niche audiences, and generate high quality leads. If you've ever hosted a webinar that felt more like a ghost town than a gold mine, then this session is for you. It's time to stop winging it and start winning with webinars. Please welcome Elizabeth to our A.U.M show.
Hi, thank you so much, Kalli, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited too. Webinars is, not my specialty here.
Yeah, well, they used to not be mine either.
Yeah.
But I realized pretty quickly I was going to have to dive right in and get it going for myself and Indigo and for our clients too.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an important topic that kind of gets glossed over a lot for advisors. So I'm excited for us to kind of delve into things. Because from my own perspective, so, when I came on Indigo, I realized, okay, so yes, I have, 13 years experience in the industry, but nobody knew who I was. So pretty quickly I was like, okay, so let's try webinars because it is working for other people and sharing, 90% of what I know and really being able to track. And it really did work for me that first year. So like every month creating that webinar, sharing details, like it grew my LinkedIn by like 400%.
Wow.
Yeah. And like our inbound traffic for our emails are really good. And we find that the people that watch the webinar are much more ready to say yes and convert through that funnel than other people. And so all that just to say that if I can do it, anybody can do it. And so that's something we like to help our advisors with.
Yeah. What would you say makes it an effective tool specifically for financial advisors who are trying to attract those qualified leads?
Yeah, so it can be an effective tool because it's something that you can have working on your website and your socials 24/7. It's a great sales tool there, but it also adds that personal connection and you're going to build trust at scale. So you can create one or a couple of them and be able to touch on a variety of different topics to really be able to position yourself as an expert. And I find when you do that education, it kind of disarms them from that sales process. So you're getting out of that, like, hire me to, I'm going to win you over with, education.
Yeah.
And of course, it's going to make you that go-to expert.
We have a guest who's saying, hi, Elizabeth. Let's talk about ensuring that you're attracting the right people and not just warm bodies. Is there how do you make sure they're actually qualified?
Yeah, so we'll start a little bit more basic before we jump to qualified, because the first thing advisors always ask me in our strategy conversations is like, when do I ask them what their A.U.M is? So I'm like, yes, that is one piece of the puzzle to pre-qualify people. But it really starts with that messaging, like identifying what are your clients' pain points and making sure from like that title to the description and all throughout it, you're really kind of honing in there. And then the next thing is really being like, authentic to yourself. Don't try to present or cover a topic you're not comfortable with. And heck, even though we're talking about webinars, if you're not comfortable in video, I wouldn't go and try to do a webinar first for short videos. And so, because when you're kind of doing the videos, you're really revealing more about who you are.
Yeah.
And then people want to say, hey, that's my person I want to work with. I connect really well with them. And then I would also really encourage you, before you jump into webinars, really audit your social and your web presence. Because if you're not aligned everywhere, it's not going to work. So you're going to attract the wrong audience. And so that's like foundational work you got to make sure you do before you jump into webinars. And then, okay, of course, we can do the pre-qualifying questions, but I want you to think beyond just only asking A.U.M. Think about the top questions people come asking you that are people you want to work with. So even if it's just like, what's your biggest retirement concern? And you can kind of weed people out that way. We'll talk more about how you can weed people out. Like, you know, as we delve into it, as we were talking through before today's call. But that's kind of as a gist. And if you want help with just knowing, okay, where are some gaps maybe in my marketing of, I might be quietly turning people away, I would encourage people to download. I have a workbook. It's a growth strategy workbook. And so we're going to really help advisors in it, like spot those gaps. So I'd encourage you to download it. Also, because, you know, I said I like to give 90% away what I know. It's not fluff. It's like 52 pages. So be prepared. Like, I really want people to go through it, learn, take some time this summer when it's a little slower to really kind of grow. Because one of my pet peeves is when I download something and I'm like, well, that's trash. I want to make sure
we've all been there.
That anything I give away, you at least get something out of it. So that's one of the key areas that kind of helps.
For those of you watching, the QR code to the growth strategy workbook is at the bottom. And if you're listening, is it an easy URL that you can spell out, Elizabeth?
Oh gosh, no, it is not an easy URL.
Okay.
So
we'll put it in the description of the event and people can get it there.
I can read it off. I know what it is, but it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So if they want to scan it, or we can send it out after too. But yeah, I think it's valuable.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. You said if you're not comfortable on video, maybe don't start with a webinar. What would you suggest somebody kind of like warms up with?
Okay, so short form video. So if you have, you know, advisors are very comfortable sending out blogs usually, or you know, putting those out, take something that you knew was a top performing blog and convert that into a video. Maximum 3 minutes if you want to do something a little bit longer. I don't want to necessarily call it long form, but then make sure kind of when you record it, you have it so it can be chopped up. Because I always want my advisors to maximize their exposure and their time. So if you create one video, make sure you could cut it into like some 30-second segments that you could then share like as a reel or just on LinkedIn, because people have really short attention spans. So
goodness, don't they? I think the drop-off rate is like, I mean, it's under 10 seconds.
Yeah, I know. So it's hard. So I would also, don't be discouraged if your first piece, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get 20 likes on this. Some time. And you have to do some testing, you know, like maybe they like, you know, there's somebody I like watching. She always is like walking on a beach, just having a conversation. Other people are sitting at their desk. So you have to kind of see like what's going to really resonate with your audience and get them engaged and interested.
Right.
And if at all possible, try not to make every single piece like, hey, this is going to be my like award-winning piece that's going to convert people.
Right.
That's just not what social is anymore.
Yeah.
Just sharing your thoughts and opinions is going to convert a lot more than I have to teach them every detail about a backdoor of the Roth IRA.
It builds, you know, you get someone in your pipeline and then you want to keep dripping on them so that they get to know you and think of you.
Yeah.
What would you say advisors should do after the webinar? You know, because, okay, yeah, I had all these people come. It was great. Now, how do I convert them? Do you suggest like a drip campaign or follow up? What's that look like?
Yeah. So the very first thing is making sure you have that ready, like in the webinar. So what do you want them to do next? Like your call to action. So are you going to want them to, get a second opinion? Is that a fit meeting, a portfolio review? Just make sure you call that out. It's also good if you call that out, not just all the way at the end, but a little bit earlier, just for those people that kind of trail off, have something pop up where they could book a time. But then really it's about that system. It's not guesswork. So having that in place, one of the things that terrifies me is when somebody comes and says, hey, I recorded a webinar, it's going to go out. Or I had somebody come to me one time and they had a really high profile guest that was going to be on. They paid a lot of money and they're like, they're coming on in 2 weeks. And I said, okay, great. What was your rollout? What's your plan for after? And they're like, that's why I'm talking to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. Because you have to make sure you have that plan that while you don't want to come off as a robot, you can customize everything. It needs to be automated. So once the leads come in, they're getting reminders to show up. Afterwards, they're getting that drip that you're taking the time also to call them. So don't just rely on the email. Like actually, if you're gathering the phone numbers, take the time to call them, and make sure you're taking them through that full pipeline from awareness to conversion. You also you want to avoid like the awkward conversations later is during your webinar, kind of weed people out by saying who's going to be a good fit or not. So who's my ideal client I work with? If you're really strong on like, hey, there's no way I'm ever going to accept somebody under like $1 million, then you probably should say that. If there's wiggle room there where you're like, hey, but they're really great savers or something else, fine. But work it all in so that you don't have those conversations later on where you're like, oh, they weren't actually a fit.
Right. How far in advance should people be doing the rollout?
The rollout. Okay. So if you figure you're going to have your webinar, I like to start, because you have to do recording, get everything prepped, so like 3 months in advance.
Okay.
So thinking about having a webinar, start 3 months in advance to really do something good. Now, once you get into a good flow and you want to do something timely, you can tighten that up. But if you want to really plan and you're starting from scratch, go 3 months. And then for rolling out, you could start sharing like on socials and that, like 2 months, like 1 to 2 months out. And then it kind of depends on your audience. If it's a lot of retirees, they don't work very much, all that, you could probably do a little less. But if it's somebody you think is, corporate executives that have their calendars are booked out, get on their calendar as like early as possible.
Okay. So 3 months in advance, we're planning out the rollout. What about the webinar topic? Like, at what point should you be picking that? And how do you pick one?
Yeah. So the easiest place to start is, what are your clients coming to you asking you all the time? And you'll see patterns of that, particularly your ideal clients when they first come to you. It's a lot of the same types of questions, particularly if you're somebody that works with, let's say Delta employees or something, and they want to do a benefits review or a stock. That's a good topic that you want to kind of cover. So that's your gold mine, because that's what people are searching for. You're going to show up kind of there. Then you can do things that are more timely or urgent that are going on, like things going on tax. Like I just did a webinar, like how to reach out to CPAs, and that one went really well because it's tax season. So already thinking about that. So we're thinking those two things. The other thing I would encourage you to do, if you can, is do at least a 2 webinar model, like one where you're focused on like who you are, how you help, and all that. And then do one that's more complex or niche specific.
To the same guests, or is this just 2 separate?
Just 2 separate ones in general.
Okay.
And then people can kind of choose that journey that they want to go down. Because the one is going to be super evergreen you're going to have on there. And then the other one, you want it to be somewhat evergreen if possible. If you're not somebody that's like, hey, I'm going to do a webinar consistently, you need to be somewhat evergreen for even your second topic. But once you get into a really good flow and you're like, oh, I want to do these quarterly or monthly, then start being way more timely.
Okay. Let's talk about mistakes.
Okay.
What are the biggest mistakes that you've seen an advisor make when doing webinars? And then follow up to that would be, how can other advisors avoid them?
Yeah. So there's unfortunately a lot of mistakes that advisors make with webinars. And I find it to be a bit heavier of an issue because there's usually a big investment involved. So I feel really bad when they made mistakes. So the first and biggest one is that they're being way too broad or generic. If I see another market update stream, because it's overdone. People
Yeah.
can get their market updates anywhere. Save that for a video. Or you can do that if you're like somebody who's doing a webinar every month. Great, let's do one. But if it's your only webinar you're doing, that's a terrible idea. The next thing would be not taking advantage of wholesalers give you free presentations with 2-year FINRA letters already. So if you're interested in doing a topic that's really investment focused and you're concerned about compliance, start there.
Yeah.
You can still kind of edit them like at the beginning and end to be a little bit more firm specific to you. And then just put it through your normal compliance for that piece of the puzzle. And it saves you a lot of work.
Yeah. Do you feel like it dilutes what you're offering though, because other people are doing the same thing?
Not necessarily, because as long as you can have your own spin on it. But if it's something that's like really, there's just, for instance, like if an advisor wants to talk about a REIT or they want to talk about an annuity or like why you should have one,
right?
That's something I just feel like you should really cover your bases on and have a FINRA letter for.
Yeah.
But if you are talking about, tax strategies to grow your wealth in retirement, no, you don't need to necessarily have a FINRA letter. So it just kind of depends there. And when you're coming up with those topics, really try, instead of being clever, be clear.
Yes.
Because we talked about earlier, people have short attention spans.
Yeah.
You want, particularly if you're running ads, people to make that quick yes decision. So you want to do that, and then make sure you have a good hook. So don't always start off with it's just a learning curve for me too, because I've done it a lot. You probably see videos where you're like, hi, I'm Elizabeth Reider. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Reider. If you're scrolling through, you want to have a hook first, and then go into, why does she want to watch? And then a little bit in, who you are and all those kind of details. Some of the other ones, we talked about a call to action earlier. If you don't have one, that's a big mistake. And, scheduling your Social Security review is going to work better than contact me or book a call, and then really not engaging them, or the kind where we've all seen them, you go to a webinar and everybody's a little tiny in the corner. It's just slide after slide. So have your face up as much as possible and work with a real editor that can pull call outs up if you're not comfortable doing that. Or even better, if you have somebody in office, just like we're having a conversation right now, you can do that with a webinar, almost like a video podcast, like trying to change the mindset about what a webinar can be. And then the best option that a lot of advisors are not tapping into is having a guest. So when you have a guest, it really expands that network. Just make sure you guys are both really clear before you hop onto it. Like, hey, you're going to share it to your network. I'm going to share it to my network. We're going to share the list when you're done, so that it's really collaborative and not just only beneficial on one side. And so that really works. And then I'd say, that follow-up strategy you're failing to promote is like a huge issue that I find. So when we talk about following up, having that automation, but when we talk about calling too, they're like, oh, the numbers aren't good. And it's like, well, did you do a double dial strategy? And they're like, well, what's that? And it's like, well, you call somebody, if they don't pick up, you call them right back again. And usually you think about it, like on your phone, somebody's calling you. If you see a number twice, you're like, maybe they really do need to talk to me. Like this. And you might pick it up. Or at least listen to the voicemail. And then just really not promoting it in general, like we talked about. And starting early. Better. I could go on and on, but I don't want to harp on negatives. So.
Well, actually, my next question was going to be, how do you judge if your webinar is successful? Because I would think that vanity, you'd be like, I want as many people as I can. But realistically and practically, it maybe isn't that you have a ton of people. Maybe it's just that you have an engaged audience. So how do you coach advisors on what is successful for their webinar?
So there's a couple of different areas you can gauge it. So one would be, obviously, we want to get as many people to attend as possible, but it's getting the right people. I would rather 4 people show up and actually convert or be really qualified prospects than 100 people that way off the mark. So that's really hard mindset shift sometimes. But they understand too, when you start talking about, well, let's talk about the lifetime value of a client. So you're still going to make your marketing money back on that. The other thing is just exposure. So like we talked about in the beginning with me doing them, a lot of it was just building up that presence. And so I would be having guests on or creating all that stuff. And at first you're like, oh, wow, like I didn't get what I wanted out of this, or what do people think? But then what was funny is I would go to a conference and people would be like, hey, I really enjoy your content.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I watch stuff all the time. And I was like, that's so strange. And it's not always a quick conversion. So it's faster than maybe just an email drip list, but I would still expect that it can take, 6 months after somebody watching it, and it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
So you really see that conversion. So sometimes people will look at the data in our CRM of, okay, so they're finally becoming a client. Like, what have you engaged with in the past? And we're like, oh, I watched quite a few of our webinars. It's not necessarily always like one webinar that was like the golden, sometimes it is, but not always. And so I would just don't want you to get discouraged if your first one isn't this like huge sales funnel for you. But they do work over time if you take the time to do them right.
How do you feel about leaving the recording up on a website? Should it be like gated? Someone has to put their email in for it, or is it just available to everybody?
Yeah, so I've gone back and forth on this. I know there's a variety of different ways you can do it. I think live webinars technically work best because it has that little bit of urgency of I'm only going to offer it at a certain time. There is the option to pre-record and people select times. I do think we're getting into now a time when, unless you're working with a lot of retirees, people probably know that it's pre-recorded.
Yeah.
They just like it because they can put it on their calendar easy. But then as far as afterwards, I still like it when somebody puts their email in because they can add them into a full. I will put it some places, just the recording, just to kind of test it out there. Like maybe I just put it up on YouTube, like the full, if it's been a little bit, or because it's just going to help with like search and all that. But definitely on the socials, I still, as much as possible, like people to put in their email just because it's hard then to have that data. Like people, if you're super confident, you're not worried about the data as much, then mix it up.
Yeah. Have you seen anything that's working better than other things for advisors? Like maybe it's a topic. Like, is there something trending in webinars that you've noticed recently?
Yeah. So 2 topics that are really trending, estate planning, and then also tax. But for both of them, it really needs to be that your firm offers more than the basics. So some people will say, oh, we do estate planning, but really it's just kind of like taking that box, like beneficiary review, or making sure we have copies of your documents.
Right.
If you're doing more advanced estate planning, understanding what types of assets should have a trust and which ones it kind of makes a nightmare on your estate process later, that's something great to kind of cover. Or if you are the tax side, we have a couple of advisory firms we work with where they literally have a tax sect in their office, and that's a huge value add. So you really want to lean on that, and they can kind of collaborate and talk together to have a conversation with their CPA and the advisor on there. But those both are working really well when you have like truly like a unique offering.
This is unrelated to webinars, but I just want to get your take on it. How do you feel about the description, comprehensive, holistic financial planning?
Yeah, it's hard because I understand the shift to holistic. Okay, so someone had been in the industry a long time, you've been in the industry a long time. When that first kind of came around, everybody was like, yeah, like I truly now offer holistic financial planning. I'm looking at the whole picture. I'm doing full financial planning, because there were so many advisors that were essentially just like stock traders.
Right.
And so I get it. I just think we're now at a shift where everybody's using it.
Yes.
So it's kind of like when everybody has like a beach theme on their website, or, everybody's website's blue. You have to try to stand out with your messaging.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage you to think outside the box a little bit. I wouldn't go too far out though, because sometimes we're working with advisors that come up with like cutesy names for themselves.
Yes. Thank you for saying
Nobody's
that.
searching it. And so you're not going to come up in a keyword search for SEO.
Yes.
And so it's a balancing act.
Yes.
We could have a whole separate web conversation on just
Clever versus confusion.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one of my pet peeves. I think I've shared it on our live stream before that I went to this conference and somebody was suggesting that you come up with new titles like dream architects, which I understood like where it was coming from. Like, oh, you're helping people plan their dreams, but it just doesn't come across that way on the receiving end if you have no idea what the other person does.
Yeah. So, and I get it from because a lot of them, a wealth coach is really popular. We're doing now. If you want to say like, I'm in your meetings, like I'm your quarterback, I'm your wealth coach, fantastic. If you want to have it on like printed materials or just sprinkled out, but don't have it be on your homepage, like your H1 title and your hero that I'm your wealth coach for pre-retirees and retirees, because
sounds like life coach.
Yeah. So really kind of, and have your friends look at stuff too. If you don't want to get a second opinion from Kalli or I, just have a friend that has no idea what you do. I'm sure they're going to be harsh and say, what do you think? And they're going to give you some raw feedback.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of feedback, for websites, for anyone watching, I will be reviewing websites next week on our live stream. If you want yours to be one of those websites, you can leave a comment, DM me, or email me.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I should have come up with a QR code for that, but I didn't.
Well, it's good because I love the real example. I always try to do that within my stuff too. It's because they have a hard time, advisors sometimes seeing, okay, so give me an example of what is good and what isn't good.
Yeah.
Because, I get copy all the time. I just met with somebody this morning and they sent me over their website copy they had written themselves. They're like, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I don't want to tear it apart, but I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it.
Yes.
So let's walk through it together. And I'll tell you, like, from my lens and what's working for other advisors, what you kind of need, those boxes you need to tick.
Right.
And
it will be a fine line that I will be dancing if someone submits a website. I won't be too harsh though, so you don't have to worry about that. This was awesome. This was a great conversation and I really appreciate it. I do, for people watching, I have a link at the top that takes you to Indigo Marketing, and I will put up again the QR code to the growth strategy workbook. Could you just give, for anyone who joined late, could you just give a quick little synopsis of what the workbook is?
Yeah, so the workbook kind of touches on like a lot of different areas for your marketing, not just related to webinars, but it's going to help you with a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that tie into a webinar, like lead funnels. So what do you do after somebody watches your webinar? We give you like a blueprint of essentially what's working for advisors, big and just individual advisors, like, 'cause it's pretty similar. And it's step-by-step, like what kind of emails you need, what kind of full sequences, what you should have in there. And so we go through like your social presence and how to do like a marketing overall strategy for yourself of content. And then really like a 90-day game plan for yourself. So we really kind of teed it up. We were excited for summer. We're like, hey, advisors are usually like, it's slow. And I don't want you to like work on vacation, but wouldn't it be nice to like print something out and feel like you had a solid plan? Because usually what happens is everybody calls us, October.
Yes.
They're like, we're ready for Q4 to be our best year yet, or getting ready for the new year. So instead, do the legwork, work with a team to kind of help you take it to the next level. And really automate things. So, while you are sipping a pina colada this summer, hopefully.
Turn it off. You can read it while you're on vacation.
Right. And so kind of making sure your calendar's all booked up and you have time to look at it before. I know a lot of advisors are doing like surges and everything. Then when fall hits and they get back, you don't have time. It's on the back burner. And then you're scrambling to get something going and you didn't really get to think about what would be effective messaging for me.
And then we've got holidays. Which, eats up everything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's better just to get it going now and have it flow through the end of the year. So you feel like, oh, okay, I've already outlined what are my goals, because we know you're gonna be sitting there thinking about it. Like most advisors, if they say they're not working, they can't turn it off.
Right.
So you're already thinking about, okay, what are my goals? How many new clients do I want? All that. So we help you figure it out. And then what do you need to actually achieve that? And so it's really important, whether you choose to work with us or not. I like to set people up for success there.
Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Elizabeth. And thank you to our guests who also joined. Again, next week, I'll be reviewing websites. If you want yours reviewed, drop me a line. Otherwise, everybody have a great week, and I'll see you then.